Hold on. Need more time. Hold on.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be doing a quick hit comprehensive guide on the Lightning Twister Amazon. As you saw in the first few clips, this build is incredibly powerful. It is also very cheap and very easy to get into. I will be honest, as of this video, the build has undergone a nerf. However, the build is still incredibly strong, and GGG, you are not allowed to nerf it again. Stop ruining our fun. Let's go ahead and get into the video. Alright, starting off with how this build works, the Lightning Twister Amazon specifically, what you need to do is charge up your whirlwinds, take a little step so your whirlwinds are infused with lightning damage, hit your barrage, and throw your tornadoes. That's it. That's all you do. Into the video, thank you so much for watching. Alright, I joke, but it really is that simple. For our skills, we are throwing Whirling Slash down 3 times, taking a step, hitting our barrage, and throwing our tornadoes. For our Whirling Slash, which is our primary attack that we use to empower our Twister, we have Martial Tempo, which is required. You attack 20% faster, so it's very, very necessary as Whirling Slash is overall a slow skill to use. And then for these last 2 jewels, I have Lacerate and I have Blood in the Eyes. Neither of these are required, they just give you additional damage to your Whirlwind, so they are recommended. For our Twister, we have Salvo, which gives us additional projectiles. We have Persistence, which makes them last longer. We have Retreat, which says if we have used a melee skill, we get empower or we get extra power to our projectile skills within the last 8 seconds. So if we use Whirling Slash and then throw projectiles, they have 25% more damage. And then we also have Acceleration. Acceleration is not necessary if you do not have a 4 link here. You can just use these 3. Acceleration would be the 4th one that you add, and then if you have a 5th one, you would add Primal Armament. I cannot afford a perfect Jeweler's Orb. I'm assuming most people who are watching this video cannot afford a perfect Jeweler's Orb. So if you don't have it, feel free to go with these 3. If you have 4, feel free to go with this 4th one, and you should be just fine. For Barrage, we have Premeditation, Ingenuity, and Twofold. Premeditation says empowered skills get 15% more damage, of which Barrage is. Ingenuity increases the cooldown recovery rate of Barrage, meaning we can use it quicker, and then Twofold gives us a chance for it to proc twice. That's it. Those are the core 3. They're not the heralds, but these are the ones that we're using primarily, so let's get into the second half of the skills, which includes the heralds, and some options that you can have for a different version of this build that uses cold tornadoes instead. Alright, so as I just mentioned, there are 2 versions of this build. Really quickly, I'm going to cover the cheaper, more budget version that uses ice tornadoes instead of lightning infused ones. If you cannot afford the Wake of Destruction secured leggings, which are about 20 exalted or more by the time this video goes live, you'd be using Frostbolt to infuse your tornadoes with cold instead of lightning. Your rotation would also change just a little bit. So you would hit Whirlwind 3 times, throw your Frostbolt, hit your Barrage, and then throw your tornadoes. If you notice, the tornadoes are white instead of transparent with little blue streaks, because they're infused with cold instead of lightning. On your Herald of Ice, you would have Magnified Effect, and on your Frostbolt, you would have Despoiler and Arcane Tempo. And that's how you do this build with a cold-infused tornado instead of lightning, only if you can't afford these boots. If you can't afford the Wake of Destructions and you want the full power of this build, instead of running Herald of Ice, you are running Herald of Thunder. Inside your Herald of Thunder, you have Longshot, Innervate, and Deadly Herald. In addition to this Herald, you are also running Wind Dancer. In my Wind Dancer, I have Precision. This is not necessary, but it does give us additional damage because we scale critical based on our accuracy rating. And I can afford this because I have Spirit on my Amulet. If you don't have an additional 10 spirit anywhere, you can't afford this. It's not necessary, but you still want to run Wind Dancer because it gives you added evasion, which is survivability for the build. In addition to these, you can also have a companion. If you have a body piece or an amulet with a lot of spirit on it, and you can afford to have a companion, the modifiers you're looking for are shocked ground or cold ground, and any type of like minions take damage before you. Those are best case scenarios. They increase the survivability and the ease of use of this build. I do not have those, therefore I do not use them, but I wanted to include them as an example anyway. With all that being said, let's get into the actual items you should be looking for to make your Lightning Twister Amazon as strong as possible. Alright, so before we get into the items that I'm wearing and what you should look for your build, I want to give a shout out to Ritualist. He just came here to buy something that I had in my stash, happened to recognize me, and gave me this spear. This spear is a huge upgrade from the one that I was just wearing. As you can see, I have 17,339 damage per second, up from 15,227, a 2,000 damage per second increase. So Ritualist, thank you very much. I completely appreciate it. He said he's done with Huntress and just gave this to me, didn't charge me a dime. So that's awesome. You're awesome. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the items you should be looking for to make your Lightning Twister Amazon as strong as you can possibly get it. Alright, for the gear, starting with our spear, we are looking for flat physical, flat lightning, flat cold if you happen to be using the cold tornado version of this build. Anything that you can get that has high flat physical is going to be a really, really good spear for this build. You can also look for high accuracy, high critical hit chance, good attack speed, elemental damage with attacks. All of those mods are going to be really good for your Lightning Twister Amazon. Alright, so the next thing we'll get into is our jewelry. For our necklace, I recommend looking for plus to level of projectile skills, accuracy, evasion. Spell damage on mine is obviously completely pointless. I also have Spirit, which is really nice because that allows me to run precision in my Wind Dancer. I also have plus to all attributes, which when I was a lower level in the 50 range, I was really struggling to wear some of my items that had really high needs for dexterity. So this made it really easy for me to do that, alongside some of the items that I needed for strength as well, like some of my jewels. I didn't have enough strength for those, so all attributes might be really beneficial to you if you're a lower level. On my rings, I have flat damage to attacks, lightning on this one, lightning and physical on this one. This particular ring also gives me some elemental resistances, some cold damage that I was using when I was using the cold version of this build. This ring also has incredibly high accuracy and evasion. So ultimately you're looking for resistances, accuracy, evasion, and flat damage on your rings. That's going to be the best for the build as it pertains to survivability and damage. For your worn gear, the helmet, the body, the boots, the belt, and the gloves, you're looking for a lot of the same modifiers on each one. So evasion rating's a nice one to have, flat life or flat mana. Critical hit chance is nice to have on your helmet and also your gloves. For your body, you want to make sure you get a good portion of your resistances in there. Maybe, high evasion, high life. The life regeneration is not really something you're looking for, but a high life regeneration like the one I have on this body can be really nice. For your belt, specifically, I would look for a belt with chaos resistance. And the reason I say that is because the two main items that you get chaos res from are your belt and your boots. If you're running the lightning version of this build, you have the Wake of Destructions, and you don't have chaos damage on these unless you corrupt them and get chaos damage, or you put a Soul Core of Takati in there. But make sure you're looking for chaos resistance. I would strongly recommend that for your belt. It shouldn't cost you too many exalted, but that's definitely something you should look for. Obviously, you want to get a majority of your reses from the stuff that you're wearing. For a reference, I am at 69% evasion, and these are my resistances. I obviously have some work to be done on these, but I do survive overall pretty well in mapping. And then finally, for the boots, just to touch base on these once again, the Wake of Destructions are just paramount for this build. They give you flat lightning, they shock the ground as you walk, so you don't have to worry about infusing your tornadoes, it's just done automatically. They give you movement speed, and they just look good, man. Let's be honest. Alright, for the passive tree, this is it. This is what I got. Feel free to pause the video and take a look at it. I am going to go into how I kind of spec'd out the passive tree myself over time, but I ultimately want to say that I don't think I have the perfect version of which nodes to go to first. There are some that I want to touch base on that you really should get as it pertains to like really helping buff this build. So let's go ahead and get into that. Starting from the top, at the beginning of the game, I just kept scaling damage. The tornadoes really don't take off until about Act 2 or Act 3 when you eventually get some serious damage on them. But I came down here, I kept coming down here. I didn't have any of these nodes yet by the time I'm in Act 2. I put this jewel in there. I was incredibly lucky to get this jewel with critical damage to spears and projectile damage. It's basically a modifier or two off from being almost perfect. I continued to come down here. I got these attack damage nodes. I ended up getting Dance with Death. And Dance with Death is really nice because we don't have an offhand. We don't have a shield to parry with. And Dance with Death is giving us 25% more skill speed since we don't have an offhand. We also have Acceleration, which is a critical node that gives you skill speed and movement speed. We have Falcon Dive because we have really high accuracy. We filled out this entire little spear section that just very much so scales your damage with spears. Came up here, got Herald nodes over here, got into some critical damage nodes, started scaling evasion as I was taking a little bit too much damage and became a little too squishy. Eventually came back up here, got additional nodes for ES and evasion, some critical, and then finally the last few nodes that I've started filling in are these guys down here, and then these are the most recent nodes that I've started filling in. And that's kind of how I set my build apart, or that's kind of how I put my build together. I can't say that's the best way to do it, but it did work for me. I got to where I'm at now with this build. So if that's how you want to do it, that would be at least my recommendation. For our Ascendancy, we are the Amazon, the Huntress Amazon. We spec'd into Critical Strike first, and Critical Strike is paramount to this build because it gives us a lot of critical strike damage, which drastically increases our DPS. If you recall earlier in the video, I showed you this little thing on my my twister chart here, telling me that I'm getting a bunch of critical hit chance, and that is from having accuracy greater than 100% via this node. That was my first Ascendancy. For my second one, I went to Penetrate. For my third one, I went to Predatory Instinct. And for my fourth one, which I'll be doing in the next day or two, I'm going for In for the Kill. And with all that being said, that's the build. That's the Lightning Twister Amazon in a nutshell. I tried to make the video as clear and concise as I possibly could in a short period of time. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions or any suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. I read every single one. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. I want to give a shout out to DS Lily, who had the original creation of this build. The mobalytics for her build will be linked in the description down below. Please feel free to like. Please feel free to subscribe if you feel so obliged. And when this video goes live, I will be live streaming, so feel free to tune into that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.